All right, welcome back, everyone. We're ready to dive into some cruise news here
Yeah.
from 2024. It was a pretty crazy year for
Yeah.
the cruise industry, I'd say. A lot going on. We've got a whole stack of articles here ready to go.
It was a wild ride, I'd say, for the industry and for some passengers, even.
Yeah, definitely some wild stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so let's kind of set the stage here. We saw everything from these like record-breaking ships
Totally.
to these like really unexpected disruptions. What were your kind of big takeaways from the year in cruising?
Well, I'd say you hit the nail on the head there, talking about those like huge ships and the disruptions. I think that really shows I guess you could say the state of the industry as a whole right now. It's
Yeah.
resilient. It's constantly changing and adapting to the world,
Hmm.
both like on land and at sea. And also, there are just some pretty clear signs that like traveler preferences are changing.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. All right, so let's jump right in. Let's start with this one that I think was maybe the biggest story of the year. Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas.
Oh, yeah.
That thing was it was everywhere.
It was hard to miss.
And it snagged the best new cruise ship award, which I mean, come on, that's a big deal.
For sure.
So tell me a little bit about this ship. I mean, I know it's huge, but like how huge are we talking? What makes it so special?
Yeah, well, when they say icon, they mean it. This thing is absolutely massive. I think it holds like what? Over 7,600 passengers?
Oh my gosh.
Which is wild. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's packed with amenities and like every kind of experience you could think of. They've got this record-breaking water park and ice rink that's literally like hanging over the ocean.
No way.
Oh, yeah. And like tons of shows, restaurants, you name it. It's like a floating city.
Yeah.
It seems like, travelers are looking for more and more to do on board. And this ship, the Icon, it delivers, it delivers in spades.
Definitely.
But, and there's got to be, but with a ship this big, it does raise questions, right? Questions about sustainability. Like, what is the impact of a ship this big on the ports, on the environment,
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah, it's a head turner for sure.
Definitely. All right. Well, kind of on the flip side of that, I guess we saw Carnival Corporation having a really good year. I think it was like a 40% increase in profits, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
So after a little bit of a rough patch for the industry, I guess. What's driving that rebound? Are things kind of back on track now?
Yeah. I think it's definitely a good sign for Carnival and maybe even, for the industry overall. But, there are some specific reasons why I think Carnival's doing so well. For one, there's definitely that pent-up demand from the pandemic years, People who couldn't cruise for a while and now they're ready to get back out there. And then on top of that, Carnival has also been really smart about their operations. I mean, they've really focused on itineraries that bring in more money, and they've been careful about how many ships they've got out there, so they're not oversaturating the market or anything.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's a combination of things, but there are still challenges. Fuel costs are going up. The global economy is kind of a question mark. So I think it's a good news story, but it's still a little early to say it's totally smooth sailing from here on out.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there.
Yeah.
All right, now let's talk about some new names that we saw kind of popping up. We had Villa V Residences, Mitsui Ocean Cruises, Arroyo Cruises,
Interesting, huh?
all kind of launched in 2024. So what do you make of these newcomers? Are they all kind of doing the same thing? Are they trying to stand out in different ways?
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting trend we're seeing here. It's almost like the industry's, branching out, moving away from that one-size-fits-all mass market approach to cruising, and they're going for these more specialized experiences. Like
Right.
take Villa V Residences, for example. They're targeting, that luxury market, folks who want to spend a lot of time at sea. They're calling it a residence at sea, which I think is a really, really cool concept.
Yeah, I've seen those ads, and they do look pretty luxurious.
Oh, yeah. And then you've got Mitsui Ocean Cruises. They're tapping into that Japanese luxury market, which is really growing, and they're offering these voyages that are really culturally immersive, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then, you've got Arroyo Cruises, which is all about those expedition style voyages to those off the beaten path places, like really adventurous stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's really telling. I think today's traveler, they're looking for something different, something more personalized, something unique, and these new cruise lines are definitely, responding to that.
Right. So I guess it's kind of a good sign for the industry, right? If there are all these new players coming in and finding these different niches.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it definitely shows that there's still a lot of room for growth and innovation in the industry, and that's exciting.
Absolutely. All right. Well, speaking of kind of changes in the industry, we did see, unfortunately, one cruise line go under this year.
Yeah.
American Queen Voyages.
Yeah.
They closed up shop, had to auction off their fleet. So what happened there? Especially, we're seeing other lines like Carnival rebounding.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a reminder that even in a market that's growing overall, there are still challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah. American Queen Voyages, they were kind of a niche market focused on river cruises and these kind of Americana themed itineraries, and it seems like they struggled to attract that younger demographic, and they also had some challenges with costs going up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a tough business, and it's a reminder that you've got to adapt and you've got to innovate to stay afloat.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, kind of moving on to some of the challenges that the industry faced in 2024. I mean, there were a lot of unexpected disruptions this year.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind is the Baltimore Key Bridge collapse. That must be crazy.
Yeah.
Cruises delayed, people having to reroute. Passengers wondering if they're even going to get to where they're going.
Oh, totally. I mean, imagine that, You're all set for your cruise, and then boom, the bridge is out.
Right.
It throws everything into chaos. And it really highlights just how vulnerable the cruise industry is to things that are totally outside of its control. Like you can have the best ships, the best itineraries, but then something like this happens and it just throws a wrench in the works.
Right. So like how do they manage something like that? And what kind of like ripple effects does it have on the industry?
Yeah, well, I think, it really underscores the need for good planning, like really robust contingency plans and good communication, keeping the passengers informed, letting them know what's going on, what to expect.
Yeah.
And as far as the ripple effects, I think one incident like this probably doesn't have a huge long-term impact, but if these things start happening more and more often, it can definitely start to affect how people feel about cruising. If people start to think, oh, my trip might get disrupted, they might be less likely to book.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, it's definitely something the industry has to be mindful of.
Absolutely. And then, we also had this situation with Royal Caribbean canceling calls to Haiti due to, safety concerns there.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
So can you kind of talk about like what factors go into a decision like that? What has to happen for a cruise line to say, okay, we're not going there?
Yeah, well, the bottom line is that cruise lines, they put passenger safety above everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And when a destination has things going on that could put passengers at risk, whether it's political instability or social unrest or even like health concerns, they have to make those tough decisions. And, canceling port calls, it can hurt the destination economically, and it can even cause problems with diplomacy and stuff like that. So it's not something they do lightly.
No, definitely not. All right, well, let's maybe lighten things up a little bit here. We had a pretty unusual story this year with the Carnival Paradise.
Oh, this one, yeah.
And a pirate invasion.
Yeah.
Well, not a real invasion. But the Seminole Hard Rock Gasparilla Pirate Fest in Tampa Bay, they kind of caused some delays for some passengers.
Ah, yes, the Gasparilla Pirate Fest. It's quite a spectacle. It's a big local tradition, and I guess it caught a few cruise passengers off guard. It's just a reminder that, sometimes even the best laid travel plans, they can get disrupted by things you just wouldn't expect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't just pirates causing trouble this year. We also had Hurricane Milton, which forced the Carnival Elation to stay at sea for an extra day.
Yeah.
So how do cruise lines deal with stuff like that? What are the protocols when it comes to passenger safety in hurricanes?
Yeah. I mean, luckily, cruise lines have really sophisticated systems for tracking the weather, and they've got really well-rehearsed protocols for navigating storms. And again, passenger safety is the top priority. So sometimes that means extending a voyage or changing course to avoid a storm. And they do a good job of keeping the passengers informed, letting them know what's going on, what to expect. And the crew, they're highly trained to make sure everyone's safe and comfortable during those kinds of events.
That's good to know. All right, well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the luxury side of cruising. We saw Viking, Crystal, Windstar all placing orders for some new luxury vessels this year. So what's driving this demand for high-end cruising?
Yeah, it seems like the luxury market is booming,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's part of that larger trend we were talking about earlier, that desire for more personalized and immersive experiences. These new ships, they're really designed to offer that next level of comfort and service and exclusivity.
Yeah.
They often have these really unique itineraries, Michelin star dining.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really, really top-notch service. It's all about, giving those discerning travelers something truly special.
Sounds pretty nice.
Yeah.
All right, well, we can't wrap up this this deep dive without talking about what I think everyone's calling Pineapple Gate,
Oh, yes, of course.
Carnival Cruise Line.
Yeah.
They banned those upside down pineapple door decorations because, of their I guess more suggestive connotations.
Right.
So, what do you think about all this? Is this a sign of changing social norms? Or is it just a case of oversensitivity?
Well, Pineapple Gate definitely got people talking, and maybe a few chuckles along the way.
For sure.
But I think it really raises some interesting questions about how social norms are changing and how cruise lines are trying to balance that fun, festive atmosphere
Mhm.
with making sure it's a respectful environment for everyone.
Mhm.
It's a reminder that even something as seemingly innocent as a pineapple can be interpreted in different ways.
Yeah.
And that, cruise lines, just like any other business, they have to be aware of those cultural shifts.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? So, all right, looking back at 2024, I mean, we saw a lot. Record-breaking ships, a lot of shakeups in the industry, those unexpected disruptions, and even a little bit of controversy. What are your kind of, I guess, final thoughts on the year, and what do you think all of this tells us about the future of cruising?
Yeah, I think 2024 really showed us that the cruise industry is changing. It's adapting. It's embracing new technologies, and most importantly, it's really listening to what travelers want. I think that trend towards more personalized experiences, whether it's those expedition voyages or luxury residences at sea, it suggests that cruising is going to become even more diverse in the future, and that there's going to be something out there for everyone. The big question now is what's next? What uncharted waters are they going to explore?
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Thanks for diving into all this with me.
Of course.
And yeah, to all of our listeners out there, keep on cruising.
Happy sailing.